Hello world, welcome to episode 68 of the Parenting Autism Podcast. You can find us online at www.parentingautismshow.com, and you can also reach out to us at parentingautism@att.net. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all those goodies. And today we have a show where we're going to find joy in the journey. I like that tagline you came up with.
Thanks.
Yeah. So,
Thanks.
Chris, and I'm joined by my wife, Sandy, and today we're going to talk about a little bit about food.
Actually, we're going to talk probably quite a bit about food and revisiting diet. About 3 years ago, I want to say it was 3 years ago, we really made a concerted effort to change diet for Bryce. And we did a lot of, I say we loosely, you did a lot of study on biomedical. Mm-hmm. And we collectively went to a conference. We got a lot of information. At the same time, Bryce was having some trouble with coughing and breathing, and we figured out that he also had asthma. Some of that was diet related. So we really made that effort to change his diet. And we did it for a little while. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to remember if we did a podcast, if we were podcasting then or not.
I don't know. I think we did it for about 30 days. And we did discover that diet did clear up his asthma.
It did. And actually we were able to take him off of his asthma medication. Mm-hmm. And we haven't had really any major issues since then. However... Right. We loosened up the diet in some respects, particularly gluten. No, I wouldn't say all respects because we still watch out for dairy a lot.
Yes, we do. We watch out for dairy.
And obviously peanuts because that takes you to the ER. But gluten is the one that he tested with a very high sensitivity to it. We removed it for a period of time, but we didn't really see any noticeable changes that would outweigh the difficulty of trying to figure out foods in the home and outside of the home that were gluten-free.
At the time, with everything that we were dealing with, it was just too difficult for us to incorporate into our daily life. But
I think we waved the flag and we're like, you know what?
Surrendered.
This is too difficult. We weren't really seeing, like I said, any changes that were like, oh, wow, okay, we need to keep doing this. So we stopped.
Yep.
However, this past week in particular, we've had an increasing number of self-injurious behaviors that Bryce is doing and some other things that are concerning us. And we've been talking about the impact of diet. So I am going to go into this a little bit just to kind of bring the listeners up to speed. Mm-hmm. So we have talked in the past year about Bryce having some self-injurious behaviors. And some of those, nothing's been extreme. And I recognize that we are fortunate that we have not had the extreme self-injurious behaviors that a lot of families with autism incur. And I understand that. And we're grateful for that. We are, however, very concerned that Bryce is doing some things and his mindset is to hurt himself when it's not normal for a child to want to hurt himself in the way that he's doing it. Yes, it's normal for a child to experience anxiety, especially as they become more aware of their surroundings and more aware of situations that can become concerning. What's not normal is when you want to hit yourself in the face to try to make yourself cry, or literally throw yourself to a hard floor and get bruises and know that you're bruising yourself because you're trying not even to get attention. You're trying to express that you're sad or that you're angry. And that's what he's doing.
I feel like we took 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 1 step forward and 2 back.
I think you mean 1 forward, 2
back. Yeah, it's become just more of an issue almost on a daily basis now. And in conjunction with that, we've just noticed that his face is breaking out more. We did reintroduce crackers because we were sick and we had soup, so we had crackers. And we introduced that, and it seemed to coincide with the breakouts on his face, and that led me to reflect on his blood test results for food sensitivity. So I went down the road of revisiting that and looked back, and gluten was off the chart. And when I say food sensitivity test, I'm talking about the IgG blood test that we did probably 3 years ago now.
I'm thinking it was 3 years ago.
And so on that test, he is sensitive to corn, gluten. We're not sure about casein because...
Actually, it said no.
Well, that was cow's milk,
test.
And I've learned more since then.
So no on cow's milk.
So we're not sure on casein. And he's also allergic to soy. Well, I shouldn't say allergic.
Don't say allergic, say sensitive.
Sensitive.
Because we know there's a difference.
So if you're sensitive to these foods, they cause inflammation, and inflammation is the enemy of anyone who has autism. So upon revisiting those results, I felt like maybe it's time to see a functional medicine doctor, which we have not seen before. We've seen one speak at a conference who seemed very knowledgeable, Dr. Rosignol, and he is close to where we live too. But this video by Dr. Udell that we both watched concerning kids with autism and diet and gut and food really just rang true to us, and I felt like, wow, he just thinks the same way that I think. Let's check him out,
He does. He definitely shares what you brought to my attention when you were studying this a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were sitting there and listening to him in this interview, what really jumped off the screen at me was when he said, a child should not be hitting themselves in the face or in the head. He said in the head. A child should not be hitting themselves in the head. Something is causing that. That's not right.
Right.
And that is specifically what we have been dealing with Bryce this week. And so I don't believe anything's on accident. That's my personal belief. So I felt like that was like divine tune in there. Okay, this guy is saying exactly what we're concerned about. We were even talking about maybe taking him to a psychiatrist now that he is able to communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
He does not communicate really well. I mean, if you try to go into a deeper conversation with Bryce about why he does something, the whys are still very hard to get out of him.
And that's the problem. We
he can tell you a lot of when, he can tell you a lot of where, he can tell you all the things about what he wants to talk about. But when we're trying to get into why are you doing what you're doing, we don't seem to be able to ask the question in a way that gets the answer that we're looking for. Maybe somebody else can. I know. And we've used that term a lot. And we've been asking him in different ways this past week as it's been happening. And I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit of insight, but I don't feel like we're getting the deep answers that we need. Do I think that diet can be impacting him? Yes, I do. Do I think diet can be impacting all of us? Yes, I do. Have we agreed that our entire family, me, you, and Bryce will do this together? Yes, we have. Because I have my own health digestive issues. I think you have your own health issues, and Bryce has them in a whole other way.
Yeah, so
I think it's going to help all of us.
Another reason why we're reaching out at this time, too, is because Bryce still has problems with his bowels. So we did find the supplement from Claire Labs.
I know you saying it's praise on here because it was working.
Yeah, the Vital 10. It has helped him. So he went from having very difficult bowel movements to easier bowel movements. But the issue now, and what has been, is he's only going every 4 to 6 days. and that's not frequent enough.
Yeah.
And so we feel like the functional medicine doctor might have some more answers in that area too. But ahead of our appointment, which is not until September because they're so busy, we're going to start the gluten-free.
Well, yes. So we're going to remove from our diets the 4 things that he is most sensitive to, which are gluten, corn, soy, and eggs.
Yeah.
And eggs was the second highest
also
sensitivity.
Dairy. We know
right, we're going to do those 4, and then we're going to take dairy out. And then when we start to reintroduce, I think dairy will be the first one we will try, only because it showed cow's milk seemed to not be a problem. Maybe all these things that we thought were dairy was one of these other 4. Because as we're learning, there's so many multiple things in an ingredient that is listed. You have to kind of get behind what's in the ingredients of the ingredient.
Right.
That's what's crazy.
And again, the cow's milk test did not measure casein. So
I understand. Yeah. So we haven't measured casein.
Right.
We may do that. I don't know if there's a test to do that. But we're definitely going on the deeper search for the diet. And we'll be reporting back because, that's what we do on here is what's working for us and what's not. I'm going to just share what I jotted down of the behaviors this week, just to kind of give those who are listening an idea of what we've been dealing with. And this is just specific to this past week. I had 4 different things that I had to jot down. And I'm sure there were other things that I didn't, but these are the ones that were weighing big in my mind. So starting with Monday, Bryce was at his therapies, and this is the first time that we've received a text that he's actually hurt himself with somebody else under their care.
That's true.
We've had some other things happen, but this was the first time he actually did something to himself. So, of course, the therapist was very concerned. And what happened was it was his OT therapist. So he was cutting something with scissors. He got a little close to the line. She reached over to kind of help correct him with his scissors, and her hand grazed his chin. So when her hand grazed his chin, he immediately took his hand and slapped himself hard upside his head. And then she said he became very quiet. And then she's like, apologized. And then she said it was an accident. And she said she was telling him that he didn't do anything wrong because she couldn't understand why he would hit himself. So she sent us this note so we would be aware. And then he went on to his speech therapist who brought him out to the car to me. So I had this information before I picked him up. He seemed to be fine with the speech therapist. And of course, I didn't bring it up in front of Bryce because I didn't want to upset him. But as we left, he did have a very solemn, serious look on his face, which is unusual. And when I tried to ask him about his day, he would not answer me. And I tried multiple angles, and he just still had that same look. And then he asked me about Grandma Roro being in the hospital. So I don't know if he was really thinking about her or if he was thinking about how he hit himself and hospitals, and that led to that question. I really don't know. He wouldn't give me anything more. I tried it for probably the first 3 to 5 minutes that I had him in the car, and then he started talking about something else in a happy demeanor, and I went with it, and I didn't bring him back up because he was back to his happy self. That was Monday. Then come Tuesday, I was sitting on the couch next to him, and we were playing his game together that we play. And I'm still recovering from COVID. I also have GERD, which causes me to cough. And everything seems to be really magnified since COVID. So I'm a pretty hot mess when it comes to coughing right now. And I've had a horrible week with it. So I'm sitting next to Bryce, and I started coughing. And when I do cough, usually it takes me a moment or two to really catch my breath because it'll go into a coughing spell. But I can understand it startled him. Okay, so I coughed, but immediately when I coughed, he slapped himself upside his face really hard on his cheek, like to the side of his face, super hard. And of course, I couldn't even talk at that time because I'm still coughing. So when I was able to recover, I'm like, Bryce, why did you slap yourself? And he said, because you coughed. And I said, I know, but you shouldn't hurt yourself when I cough. How did that make you feel when I coughed? He said, I was scared. Then he said, I was mad. And then he says, I was sad. Like he said all of those. So I think he was confused as to how it made him feel, but he slapped himself. So I'm like, well, why would you slap yourself and hurt yourself if I'm coughing? And he said, because I was sad, I needed to cry. So I'm like, so did you hit yourself so that you would cry? Yes. I don't know. Is that what he really means? I mean, it's like sometimes I feel like when an attorney is leading a witness and they're getting the answer out of them because they led them to it and it's not their real independent answer. Sometimes I feel like I'm leading him to his answers and I'm not trying to. I'm just really trying to get the truth, but it's hard. So that was Tuesday. And then shortly after that, I mean, and when I say shortly, I'm talking like minutes after, he started talking about something else and he was back to his happy self. So I didn't make an issue of it, but I told you about it, and it's still very concerning to me. So then you fast forward to a couple days later. This one I remember we had gone out to dinner. We got back in the car, and he was supposed to be buckling in his car seat, his booster seat. And Bryce right now, this is a whole separate issue, but he's really obsessed with watching the clocks go off at the top of every hour.
On his game.
On his game. Or if he's in a house that has a clock, he would want to be there too. Anywhere there's a clock nearby and he happens to have it on his game now, it gets very upsetting for him if he doesn't get to see it. So, separate issue we have to work on. Having said that, it was like a minute to 7 p.m. and he knew that. And so he was reaching forward to get his switch from me so that he could hear the clock as I'm listening to it now. So anyway, you got in the car and you didn't know that that's what he was reaching for. So you just said, Bryce, get in your seat. And it did sound like yelling, even though I know you didn't mean it that way. But for him, that's what he heard. So when Bryce hears yelling, we all know that doesn't go well. And so then he threw himself. He didn't have a floor to throw himself to, and he didn't hit his face or his head, but he literally threw himself into the seat to his side, and he crushed the food that he just put in, which didn't help matters, but he didn't know what to do. That's just how he reacted to being yelled at. So I knew that upset you even further. So we get him buckled in, and then he's repeating, Daddy, you yelled at me. Daddy, you yelled. I threw myself, Daddy, because you yelled. So I knew then, in this particular case, he was reacting to his emotion of being yelled at. But he also wanted that attention that came with it.
Yeah. I mean, I have to chuckle because when I said, Bryce, get back in your seat, that's kind of how I said it. And okay, well, I said it however I said it.
Okay.
But you followed it with, it sounded like you yelled. And then Bryce immediately said, Daddy, you yelled.
Okay, maybe I led the witness, but I was letting you know he was already upset.
Yes.
And I wanted you to know why he was upset, because I don't think you heard yourself as yelling.
Okay.
But I needed to validate to you that it did. It sounded like yelling. So when we had to go to the store next door, which was just moments away. So you parked the car, you got out within minutes, which was good. So you went in the store so you could cool off from the scene. Bryce was there. I said, ask him, why did you throw yourself? And then he said, Daddy yelled. I said, well, what should you do when Daddy yells? Are you supposed to throw yourself to the floor or to the seat and hurt yourself? Or should you say, Daddy, why did you yell? And he says, well, Daddy yelled. I said, I know it's not, but I don't think Daddy knew he was yelling. I think it was an accident. Mm-hmm. So what you should say is, Daddy, why are you yelling? Because if you ask him why he's yelling, then he'll realize that he yelled and it was an accident and he can say, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. But don't hurt yourself. So I really took it as a teaching opportunity. And I'm really glad you were able to go in the store at that time. Because if you all had stayed in the car together, I wouldn't have been able to have that chance to have that conversation while it was fresh.
Yeah, I mean, he was just asking me over and over, Daddy, why'd you yell?
Oh,
Daddy,
he did.
why'd you yell? So I'm like, I'm going in the store because I had to run in and get something. And I thought, okay, if I leave the scene, that will remove his questioning of me, and then maybe you can help simmer things down by the time I got back.
And that worked.
Yeah. So
It worked. And you were very sweet, and you brought him out a net from the dollar store because on his Animal Crossing, he's always got his net out catching butterflies and bugs. And so it was cute because now he's got his own net in real life that he can use around here in the backyard or in the house.
Yeah.
And it really took his mind off of the whole yelling and car seat situation and put it on the net and his favorite game.
I mean,
that was good.
What are the odds that the dollar store had a butterfly net?
Seriously. I know. So again, that was God placing it there, and it really smoothed it over. But once again, here's a third incident that we've had in like 5 days. And then yesterday, for the fourth one, I took him to the UPS box because we needed to make a delivery into the box. And he likes to do that for me. So he got out of the car. He dropped the box in the envelope. And then when he came back in, I'm drawing a blank as to why he did this. I do know. Okay, so it was hot because we're in South Florida and it's June. And so even the seatbelt metal part was hot. He didn't want to touch it. So I reached in and I reached around to buckle him into his car seat to help him. And again, kind of like what happened with the OT therapist, my hand grazed his face as I was buckling him in because I was reaching across to buckle him in. Again, I lightly touched his face. He perceived it as that I hit him, and he smacked himself, not this time on the side of his, he hit himself square in the face on his nose as hard as he could multiple times, like boom, 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 boom. It totally shocked me. So I didn't say anything because I said, I think I might have reached to stop him. Probably. That's probably like a reflex. But I closed the door and I could see he was doing it still. So it wasn't for my attention. So I walk around the back of the car. I get into the driver's seat and he had stopped by this time. So I buckled in and I'm staying calm. But then I reached around before I put it in reverse and I said, hey, Bryce, why did you hit your face? And he said, because you hit me. You hurt me. I said, did I hurt you or did you hurt yourself? And he said, I hurt myself. I said, okay, because I didn't hurt you. My hand touched your face, but I didn't hurt you.
So, hey, if there's anybody out there listening that is going through this type of thing and has a solution or, it's very difficult.
Or you just want to share that we're not alone.
Yeah.
Anything you're doing.
It. But there was another instance after that. He was in the kitchen and he fell to the floor out here, and then I opened the office door and I said, you see this? Remember, he was laying on the floor.
Yes.
Do you remember what that was about? I
didn't write that one down.
Oh.
Honest to God, there's been so many this week that I can't keep up with them all.
You're in the office, so I'm like, write this one down.
Oh, maybe I did. I didn't write it on that paper. I might have put it on the app in my phone.
Okay.
So this was a hard one to the floor, and he's been bruising himself when he's falling to the floor. So yeah, we've had a lot of incidents. Either and when he drops to the floor, it's not like he slowly melts to the floor.
No, he collapses.
He will throw himself. I would prefer he even collapse because he goes down slowly and it's more like a melt. But when he's upset, it's almost like an instant reaction. Like he doesn't even think about it first. It's just like this happens, boom. He just goes hard to the floor. It's really concerning to me that he did this at therapy. And that's when you wrote me and said, maybe we should take him to a psychiatrist. Seriously. And I'm like, I'm not opposed to that because, again, there's something in there that's not connecting right. And then we have the conversation of, well, let's just not forget that this poor baby had a traumatic brain injury, a grade 4 brain hemorrhage the day after he was born, and his brain had to rewire. There was a lot of rewiring to do.
All right, I need to check out on my heart.
Pause.
Pause.
All right, everyone. I really don't remember what I was talking about, and I didn't write it down. So whatever it was, if it comes back to me and it's important, we'll talk about it. If not, what we just experienced is kind of an example of what we've been dealing with. Chris could hear, and I could hear it too, but it sounded like Bryce was dropping something. Thankfully, he wasn't dropping himself to the floor, but he was dropping the remote control. And so when we went out there, he was saying he couldn't hear Mommy's voice. Well, he was on the other side of the house and watching his show. I had told him we were coming in here, but apparently he must have been calling for me. I wasn't responding. And instead of walking and looking for us, he takes the remote and throws it to the floor and takes it out on the remote because, again, he's upset. And that's what he does. He takes his emotions and he either puts it on himself or he puts it on another object. And he will drop his game. He will drop his iPad. He will drop himself. He will drop a remote control. Whatever. He just doesn't know how to process his emotions. And I really think that's a lot of the root of the problem. But how do we change that? And I think what I was talking about was that he had his stroke and his brain had to rewire. And we don't know how it rewired. And we just don't know what causes Bryce to want to hurt himself or to disappear or to run away when he gets upset about something.
Right, because oftentimes he'll say, I'm going to run away.
Right, he's saying that now. Yeah. I'll run away, make me disappear.
Yeah.
Like he thinks if he goes away, it will make us happier. I mean, the other night he got upset with his Animal Crossing, and he was playing the game. It was actually last Sunday, a week ago. Again, almost every day something's happening, but this was very traumatic for him. We told him that he could play with her at 7 o'clock, and he wasn't finished with his dinner at 7 o'clock, and it was time for them to play.
Auntie Sue.
Yeah, Auntie Sue. Mm-hmm. And so she's in Maryland. They play virtually. I put her on FaceTime, and they play for a couple of hours. They have this great new relationship with Animal Crossing. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't Bryce's fault that he wasn't done with dinner. It was a dinner that was a little more complicated, that had noodles, and it was hard for him to eat that independently. We find it easier sometimes if you and I can eat, and then we help him. But he's a very slow eater because he gets distracted. He gets distracted even if he doesn't have a tablet to distract him. He's distracted by anything. And so it's very hard to get him through a meal. He wasn't done. He got upset. Now, he goes to punish Auntie Sue and himself by saying, okay, we can't be best friends anymore, which means they can't connect for their game. And then he went on and he actually removed her as a best friend. So that's happening as I'm calling her. So she comes on. I'm like, okay, hi, Auntie Sue. We have a little issue, a little problem we're dealing with here, but we'll get it fixed. And then Bryce is like, I didn't finish my dinner. I can't play with Auntie Sue. So like he wants to punish himself because that, and he thinks removing her, I didn't know how to get her back, but honestly, it could have been a full-on meltdown. We were able to change that, but this is the kind of thinking we deal with. Like, it's self-destructive in different ways. Thankfully, again, he doesn't take it out in an aggressive fight mode because he's more flight than fight. But I find that he takes it out on himself. He doesn't take it out on me and you and other people, and I'm grateful for that. But it still breaks my heart when he's taking it out on himself or on objects or by doing things like that he thinks going to hurt himself, and it does, and it makes him sad and it makes him cry. Why does he want to make himself cry? Is that so he can process an emotion because he sees pictures of people crying? I mean, you take these emoji pictures, and what do they associate with sad? Tears. So I almost wonder if somewhere in his brain he now thinks, okay, I feel sad, I need to have tears. And if they're not naturally coming, is he finding ways to create the tears? I mean, honestly, is it that deep? What do you think?
I have no idea. So I think it could be diet related, and I'm hoping that this new way that we're going to eat is going to help with that. And so I think we ought to talk about this book that we received.
Well, let's do that. Because really, we're not going to get
We can't
answers
solve
here.
it
It's
here.
a rhetorical question.
Yes.
Why is Bryce doing what he's doing? But
Right.
we'll find out. Okay, so talking about the diet, and we are going to be making some significant changes. So we're having to think, well, what recipes, what can we do?
It might be a lifestyle change. So.
I think it's definitely going to be a lifestyle change. So we're grateful for Sarah Appleman, who reached out to us and said that she has a book that she wrote called Play With Your Food.
She's an OT who deals a lot with sensory processing disorder. So, that could include food, and textures.
Absolutely. And we
everything
know
like
that a lot of parents who have children on the spectrum struggle with getting their kids to eat food. So she's got some ideas here.
Yep. It's a recipe and activity book.
Yep. And so, she calls it a fun family guide to improving food tolerance. I will say that Bryce is pretty good about eating some vegetables and some fruits. However, we're about to really change up his diet a lot to where we need him to be
What's the
open to
title of
a
it?
lot. Play with your food.
Yeah.
We need him to be more open to
New foods.
a lot of new foods.
Although he does eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. So
he's pretty good, but
he's pretty good.
We're going to have to try to expand it.
Yeah.
So you said, okay, come on, let's look through this book and see if there's anything that is going to help us on this
and
new journey.
you found
or
some
could help
cool-
listeners. And I'm like,
cool
I
ideas.
think there's a lot of ideas. There's some things in here that won't work because we're going to be gluten free. But I'm like, no, there's plenty of stuff that she has in here with fruits and with vegetables. And so one example was memory game. And I like what she does. It's very visual. She has all these little bowls with the fruits already in there. And then you take pictures. So say 2 pictures of strawberries, 2 pictures of apples, et cetera, et cetera. And then you turn them over and it's like match game. And then if you match the 2 pictures of a fruit, you get to take a bite and make it like a prize and a fun thing. Another idea was color matching. This one, Bryce is very into board games, and he gets very excited about landing on the different spots and that you get to do different things if you land on them. So the board game she had on here, which is colorful, was Candyland because they have different color squares. And so, you could create anything. But I like that idea because if you land on purple, then you get to eat a fruit that's purple or have blueberries in there, right? So if it's in the blue-purple family,
Or
if you land
cabbage.
on red, you could kind of figure out what fruits match those colors.
Yeah.
Or vegetables, mix it up. And then I think that would be a great way. And again, it's just whatever your child kind of responds to. Bryce is not into crafting very much, like hands-on crafting. But I do think that he would be okay with this one that's like fruit imprints, where you could take an apple. And for Bryce, we would dip it in honey because we want something that's a just pure natural sugar sweetener. And he likes honey. But we could take that, put it on the page. It shows the shape of the apple or whatever fruit you want. But I would like to get him to eat more apples. I think I'll try it with apples. And then he could take a bite of the apple with honey. And I think he would like it better if it had honey on it than if it was just straight up apple.
I think those are some great takeaways from the book.
And there's lots more.
There is a lot of them in there. And I think once we're done with the book, we'll pass it on to one of our listeners in one of our contests, I think.
Yeah.
And speaking of the contest.
Yes. So we're talking about for the month of June what we wanted to do. And I know it's already June 13th, but... You know, again, we've had a rough recovery from COVID. So we are going to this month make everybody a winner that who reaches out to us with an email. We will send you one of our parenting autism decals for your car.
Yeah, so we're making a new order for the decals, so they should be coming in soon. And then anybody that wants to reach out to us through email, parentingautism@att.net, and say, hey, I'd like one of your decals for my vehicle, and send us your address, of course. We'll be sure to send one to you.
Yep, so respond in the month of June.
And it's free.
That's going to be our giveaway.
Yep.
And we're going to be like one of those teams that everybody gets a trophy. So this month, everybody gets a decal that reaches out to us.
Right. And so do you have anything else going on? What do you got?
I think it's just been kind of a crazy time around here. I think recovering from COVID was a little more than I thought it would be. And again, we're very grateful that it wasn't worse.
Hospital, yeah.
And we know there were a lot worse situations out there. We're just still kind of dragging from it and trying to readjust to life this week. This is honestly the first good week that we've had in a month physically.
Yeah.
So God knew that we needed extra strength this week because with Bryce, probably one of the behavior-wise more challenging weeks that we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And I really don't think it has anything to do with COVID. I really, really do agree that I think we're going to see some changes when we switch up diet.
I think so. For everybody. Like, for me to come off of Coca-Cola, I mean, that's going to be a life changer for me. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but with the Lord's help, He's going to help me through that, and I'm going to get over to water, and it's going to help me a lot. So I think we're going to both see positive changes for ourselves in addition to Bryce.
I agree.
And listen, I mean, we're just doing a little research on this lifestyle change, and oh my goodness, like we're looking at recipes. So you think, okay, well, ground beef should be okay, right? Because we're going to make some chili and chili, beans, tomato sauce, right?
Every ingredient was checking out okay.
I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not sure about the ground beef because if the cow eats corn or grain, that goes into the meat, and so I'm like researching that, and sure enough, if the cow is grain fed, there's your corn, and you have to eliminate all of the irritant, whatever it is.
And corn is a big one for Bryce. So then when you said that, I'm like, well, what about chickens?
Yes.
Don't they eat corn?
So the thing is that if you even have a little bit of whatever it is that your body is offended by, it will cause an inflammatory reaction as if you ate a whole sandwich of it. So, we're looking at chickens. So, yes, chickens eat corn. They eat grain. So, we're looking at chickens that
and Bryce has chicken every day in some way, shape, or form.
And eggs was one of his things.
Yeah.
And so, okay. And guess what? They sell and raise chickens the old-fashioned way on the field where they eat bugs and seeds and whatever else is out there in the field. And there are companies that sell chickens that are grain-free, corn-free, soy-free, because a lot of the feed has soy in it, and it's all genetically modified stuff. So 80%, I think, of the corn sold in the United States is genetically modified, and that's not the way God intended it for our bodies. So,
well, and you and I are talking, I mean, the foods that we ate and when we were Bryce's age, 40 years ago.
A lot different.
The same food, it might be titled the same food.
Right.
But it's not the same food because the way that they make it now has been changed so much because of trying to
make more profit.
Yeah, make more profit. From the bread to the meats to the vegetables, all of that. None of that is like what you and I grew up, which I don't think is a coincidence that there are so many more issues today.
Yes.
And it's just a fact.
That's the truth.
And it's time that we just own it and do it. And we want a better life for Bryce and we want a better life for us.
We are really
let's do the ultimate sacrifice with foods and let's do it. And it's kind of funny because you mentioned the Coke and the water.
Yeah.
And so we know we're kind of on this home stretch of eating and drinking what we want. And we've already made the pact and agreement that nothing else will come in to our house from the grocery store that doesn't meet the qualifications. Yes. But we didn't have time to feed Bryce before church today, and he was asking for food on the way there. Poor, bad parenting. And so, it was a 10 o'clock service, so we're like, well, when we get out, we'll get you McDonald's, which is next door.
Because I didn't eat breakfast.
And
I didn't even think
and I'm thinking, enjoy it, buddy, because it won't be for long.
Right.
So you upsize the drink from his Happy Meal to a large Coke, which you always do.
Yep.
And we get him a cup of water. So we come home and both of the McDonald's cups were on the counter. And Bryce accidentally picked up your cup of Coke. We didn't know. He took a sip and he's like,
I had to spit that out.
That's what he said. I drank Daddy's. I didn't know it wasn't mine. I had to spit it out, and I'm like, yes, this boy hates Coke. Isn't that awesome?
I know, it's
he
awesome.
wants his water.
Yeah.
So that's one hurdle we don't have to get over. But I'm thinking, Daddy's going to be drinking water soon. But it was just like this sign.
Well, listen,
like,
I was
yucky.
so thankful when he did that because all he drinks is water, and he'll have apple juice with his supplements. So all he really has ever drank is apple juice and water.
And his apple juice is the non-sweetened.
Right.
All natural.
Organic.
Yeah.
So when he did that, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is funny. Any other kid probably would have been like, oh, yeah, give me some more of that.
Yeah.
So
You did not want it.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, we definitely have a radical lifestyle change on the horizon. My birthday is Saturday, so I'm like,
happy birthday.
can we just wait till after my birthday in case I want
and I told you, I
treat?
said, we're going out of town for your birthday. How are we going to do that? You're like, okay, we're starting after my birthday.
Yeah.
So
and we will.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm ready.
We're eating the
I'm
food
mentally ready.
that's
I'm
left
physically ready.
in our cabinets.
Yes.
And we're starting over.
And we're starting to bring stuff in this week so that when we come back next Sunday, we've got some stuff in the pantry ready to roll.
Yeah, please pray for us.
So do pray for us.
We both said it. That's
and
funny.
if you have taken steps out on this journey and you think you have any fabulous recipes that your family enjoys, specifically for like lunches and dinners, I think trying to tackle that.
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast is pretty easy. Actually, Bryce likes grapefruit, so we've
That's
got
what
that
he
nailed
eats.
every day.
Yeah.
But trying to find these substitutes that aren't too complicated, but don't have all those complicated ingredients in them, we would love for you to send them our way, and we'll see if that works for us. And we will probably share some on our website as we find some that really, we really like, okay, we're all behind this one. This is a great one.
I think we'll be having a list of what
we'll probably have like a recipe book of some, something I'm sure we'll be adding onto the site.
It's hard to find. If you go gluten-free, casein-free, you can find recipes.
Right.
But once you go gluten-free, casen-free, soy-free, corn-free, then you're...
What's our other one? Egg-free.
Egg-free.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You're
It's
a
deep.
goner.
But I know of some other moms that their children have even more allergies and like true blue allergies, not even intolerances, than that. So I'm sure there's some listeners out there that you're like, oh yeah, my kid is allergic to everything under the sun. If you have found some good recipes that you enjoy, really, that are good, send them our way. We would love that.
Awesome. All right. So, be sure to check out the book, Play With Your Food. It's
I think it's going to be a really good one, and I'm looking forward to using that with Bryce.
So big thank you to Sarah for sending that to us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we're good for the day.
I think we're in a good spot. So, I don't know if it's a good spot, but
this is a good stopping point.
A good wrap-up point. So,
that is good.
episode
Right.
68.
In the books. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We hope you have a great week, and we will chat again soon.
See ya.
Bye.